Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Michael Francis, and I am a seeker of truth. Well, let's begin. So, before we start reading today, I wanted to mention, because I don't think I made it as clear as I could have with chapter 15. Um, Saw a video that kind of hit on chapter 15 quite a bit, and it kind of hit home with me that, yeah, I need to make sure that I really hit this home. Is that when it comes to that covenant and the salvation that we have, that you have nothing to do with that. You know, all we have to do is believe. It says in there that Abraham believed and God counted it as righteousness. So I just wanted to hit back home on that we have nothing to do with our salvation. A lot of people look at it and go, well, I said yes to God, so I did have something to do with it. No, 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 you didn't. Without God guiding you into that and leading you into that, you had nothing to do with it. So God can choose who He wants to accept and who He doesn't. Um, that's up to Him. He doesn't have to give you that grace. He doesn't have to give you any forgiveness at all. So I just wanted to make sure, hit home that you have nothing to do with your salvation. That is all God. So, anyways, with that, we're going to hit chapter 16, and then I'll give my thoughts and my insights into that chapter. If you remember at the beginning, if you watched all my videos, specifically the intro, I said I was going to go through with this certain translation called the Scriptures. It's by the Israel, the Institute for Scriptural Research. And I think it's an excellent translation. Some people might not agree, but it is a little wonky. I encourage you to read and listen to what I'm reading and compare it to what ESV, NIV, and ASB, whatever translation you're using, and see that they actually did do a good job. So the big differences is proper names, places, such as instead of Egypt as we know it, and they use that translation and say it's Egypt. In the original Jewish Bibles, it would call it the Mitzrayim, and but it's not it's not heretical or anything like that. It's just saying that, hey, this is what it was originally called in the Hebrew, the way the Jewish people would understand it. So, anyways, there's that. There, instead of the Lord, like every time you see that, the Lord, in our translations, it was always translated. It was always in the original Hebrew. It was always Yahweh or Yahweh, depending upon how you read it. They don't even know how to technically say it because they had no vowels. It's all consonants. So typically we say Yahweh. Same with Jesus, it translates it as Yeshua. So anyways, I'm going to read from the scriptures on this, on chapter 16, and then get to my insights. Page too far. And you'll kind of see what I'm talking about as I read it. And Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no child, and she had a Mitzrite, which would be Egyptian, Mitzrite female servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, see, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please, go in to my female servant. It might be that I am to build up by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So he listened to his wife. Remember that. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her female servant, the Mitzrite, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. So in other words, they'd waited 10 years since God made this promise to Abram. So from the covenant to now, it's been 10 years. Okay? So it's kind of like hurry up and wait on God kind of thing. And he went into Hagar, and she conceived, And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. And Sarai said to Abram, My wrong be upon you. I gave my female servant into your bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. Let Yahweh judge between you and me. And Abram said to Sarai, See, your female servant is in your hand. In other words, she's your property. Do to her what is good in your eyes. And Sarai treated her harshly, and she fled from her presence. So Sarai was very mean to her. Abusive, I would say. And the messenger of Yahweh, remember that, messenger of Yahweh, found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's female servant, where have you come from, and where are you going? And she said to him, I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted. And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, See, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, or as we translate it, Ishmael, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. And he is to be a wild man, his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and dwell over against all his brothers. And she called the name of Yahweh who spoke to her, You are the El who sees, which would be El as in God, Elohim. So again, that depending upon how we translate it, we translate it as God, but in the Hebrew it's El, as in Elohim. Elohim is the plural. For she said, Even here have I seen after him who sees me. This is why the well was called Bir Lahai Ro. See, it is between Kadesh and Bered. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. So that would be 86, so that would be 11 years since the promise. So let's begin, and we're going to go into my insights as I studied this. Alright. Get a drink of coffee here. Genesis chapter 16, verse 1 through 5. How many times does Yahweh have a plan for us that we choose to push along when he hasn't told us it's time yet? Tried to help him along, in essence, when we should have trusted and let him work his plan. So it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but I do it quite a bit to where I know God's leading me somewhere, such as this channel and stuff, and instead of trusting in him, instead of believing him, believe his word, right? And he counts it as righteousness for just believing. We have a tendency of, okay, God, I know this is what you're telling me, and we try to rush it along instead of waiting for his timing. So, and you'll know when it's his time, because he'll let you know. So I just found that rather interesting and kind of funny that Sarai's the one who really pushed this. I can almost hear that conversation, like, them sitting down for dinner, and Sarah's like, well, it's been 10 years, it's been a decade. I'm obviously not conceiving, so what exactly did he tell you, Abram? And I can just hear that conversation, and Abram going, well, God said that through me there's going to be a son, a promised son, and he's going to become many nations, right? And Sarai's like, well, He didn't really say through my body though, through my flesh and blood. So maybe it's my servant that we're supposed to do this with. So let's help God out, and I'm going to give you my servant, and maybe that's how we'll build our house. And again, like I said, it's like we think that we can help God when it's like, dude, just wait. God's got a plan. It'll happen. Okay, quit trying to push it. All right, verses 5 and 6. Sarai then gets angry about a decision she herself made. She even goes as far as to abusing this other image bearer of God when Abram tells her to do as she wishes. So, like I said, remember that when we read it, Sarai was like, she despises me, so I'm gonna do what I want. Judge between me and you. All that good stuff. It's kind of funny that, again, just like in the garden, Adam followed Eve. What happened? The fall. Again, instead of the man taking the lead, he listens to his wife, who's, this is not misogynistic at all. I'm just saying that, the man's supposed to lead the household, and again, the woman is going, well, this is what we should do, and the man just concedes and goes, okay, yeah, that's what we're going to do, kind of like trying to keep her happy. And, how many times do we do that as well? Instead of leading our household and knowing what God has said, we push and go, okay, God, well, I'm going to listen to my wife. Which I'm not saying that you can't. You're supposed to discuss these things together and come to a decision together. But I just found it interesting that Sarah got mad about the decision that she herself was the one who initially made that decision. And it's like, so now you're blaming your husband for doing what you wanted in the first place. Found that interesting. Verse 7 through 16. Who is this angel of the Lord, or messenger of Yahweh? Again, depending upon your translation. From my studies and understanding, this is Jesus, or Yeshua, before his physical birth on earth. This would be the physical form of Yahweh himself. Some disagree and think that when an angel or messenger doesn't give a name for themselves, they just use this phrase. They're just, So, I made an additional side note as I studied some more. It said some say it's Gabriel. An example of this would be when he appears to Joseph and Mary, he's referred to as the messenger of the Lord as well, an angel of the Lord. So some people think every time we see that, that's actually Gabriel. This is my issue. This is why I disagree. Why not just call an angel? Why not just call them an angel then, rather than messenger of the Lord? Why all the added, of Yahweh, of the Lord? Why not just say it's an angel? I personally, this is me, I still stand on believing that these sightings in the Bible are indeed Jesus, God the Son, appearing to them. So, that's my own opinion. I'll let you guys decide what it is. Like I said, some people think it's messenger as in Gabriel. I can see that that's possible, but, just a lot of it seems like this is a special instance. It's not just an angel. It gives a very specific, it's not a specific name, but it's a specific type. Right, so I think it's Jesus showing up on scene way before his actual physical time here on earth, as with the Gospels. It'd be his life, death, burial, and resurrection. So concerning that. Messenger of Yahweh, he tells her to humble herself before her mistress. Almost like ask forgiveness. Humble yourself. How many times are we told, humble yourselves and repent? This is kind of that same deal. It's like whether that's your master. That if Yeshua, if God is your king, if he is your God, no other God, humble yourself. And it's kind of enlightening that he's saying, hey, you need to do the right thing, irregardless of what they're doing. You might not see it. Humble yourselves and go back to your master where you belong. All right, next is Ishmael. Ishmael becomes many nations. Okay, many nations according to Scripture. So, who are these many nations? This is something that's come up a lot. I've noticed looking at this text specifically and doing videos and doing my own research and books and stuff like that. It's not explicitly stated, except that they are initially called Ishmaelites. The historian Josephus and many other scholars think they are all the other Arab nations that surround the area of the Middle East. Places such as Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Iran, Iraq, etc. I'm not fully sure, but I'll leave that up to y'all to decide what you believe there. I honestly think it seems plausible, yeah. So he says that he's going to make him a wild man, and he's going to contend with his brothers. So that, well, the only brother that he had was Isaac. So if that's the case, that's Israel. And you've got all these nations around him. They're, generations. We hear about it right now. All these nations attacking Israel, and it's like that's that constant battle. So that's kind of what I believe, is that it's all the other Arab nations warring against Israel all the time. It's always Israel. They never fight with themselves, with each other. It's always against Israel. It's kind of ironic to me, if that's the case, right? But again, I'll leave that for you guys to decide. Okay. Read Galatians 4:22 through 31. Okay. I did this a while ago, so I don't quite remember it myself, but we're going to look at it. Read Galatians 4:22 through 31. Okay. For it has been written that Abraham had two sons. Now I remember why. One by a female servant, and the other by a free woman. Note that. Servant woman, free woman. But he who was of the female servant was born according to the flesh. Okay? To the flesh. And he of the free woman through promise. So he made a promise about Isaac, not of Ishmael. So one was of the flesh, and the other was of the promise. Okay? This is allegorical, for these are the two covenants. One indeed from Mount Sinai, which brings forth slavery, which is Hagar. So if you remember, I talked about covenants last time. And every time man gets involved, we screw it up. So just like at Mount Sinai, God made a covenant with the Jews, but the Jews had to do something. It was called the law. And that's what God gave. And we screwed it up. Again, just like with the garden. Just like with Ishmael and Isaac. As if we get involved, we always screw everything up that God has planned. Not that we can thwart his plans. He's still going to get his way. He's God. But it's just saying that, hey, every time a covenant's made and man gets involved, we screw it up. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem or Jerusalem. Again, translation differences. Which now is and is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. For it has been written, Rejoice, O barren, you who do not bear, break forth and shout, you who do not have birth pains. For the deserted one has many children, than she who has a husband. Okay? And that is in Isaiah 54, 1. So we're going to go to Isaiah 54, verse 1. I gotta find it. Yeah. Way too far. Okay. 65. Chapter 54, verse 1. Sing, O barren one. So we're quoting here. Sing, O barren one, you who did not bear. Break forth into singing and cry aloud, you who have not been in labor. For the children of the deserted one are more than the children of the married woman, said Yahweh. So again, in Galatians, this would be Paul quoting the scriptures to them from Isaiah. So in other words, he's telling them this is prophecy fulfilled through Jesus Christ, through Yeshua. He's searching the scriptures with them. Be like the Bereans. Search the scriptures, see if what I'm saying is true. And we, brothers, as Isaac was, are children of promise. But as he who was born according to the flesh then persecuted him born according to the Spirit, so also now. So he's saying Jews are being persecuted by those of the flesh. Those born of spirit, that would include us. So in case you didn't know this, we are grafted in with Israel. So we are part of Israel. If you are a Christian, you are part of Israel. Well, what does the scripture say? Cast out the female servant and her son, for the son of the female servant shall by no means be heir with the son of the free woman. Let's see, 21:10. So that would be Genesis 21:10. Way later than what we haven't gotten there yet, but we're going to go over it anyways. See, I'm going down a rabbit hole, even though I didn't do this. I was just supposed to read the Galatians part of it. But we're going to go into it anyways, just because I can. Because this is my channel, and I'm going to do what I feel the Spirit leads me to. 21, verse 10. So she said to Abraham, drive out this female servant and her son, for the son of this female servant shall not inherit with my son, with Isaac. So this was Sarah kicking out Ishmael and Isaac. Or Ishmael and his mother Hagar. She's saying, kick them out. They're done. Okay? So, therefore, brothers, we are not children of the female servant, but of the free woman. So it's saying that, hey, if you're saved, you're part of that inheritance. You're part of that original covenant. You haven't been kicked out. The rest of the world is. And the rest of the world is kicked out. So, and my note here was we are grafted in as part of the free woman, Isaac, even though we are born of the slave woman, Ishmael. So again, like I said, we are grafted in as part of Israel. Whether you want to admit that or not, that is what Scripture states, is that you are grafted in. He also says, even though you are grafted in, do not become haughty, do not become arrogant, and think that just because you were grafted in that you can't be taken right back out, and those that were thrown out be grafted right back in. Anyway, so that's what I've got on notes today. So, yeah, I'm kind of drawing a blank here. Again, another big chapter, and it's kind of showing you the way the covenant works, the way the promise works. God made a promise, Yahweh made a promise to Abraham, and even though they tried to push that issue and tried to make their own way, God said, no, no, you're going to do it my way. So sometimes we've got to get that kick in the pants and realize that God has His plan, and that's the way it's going to go, whether we like it or not, you know. And I kind of struggle with that myself, and I think everybody does, you know, is that there's a lot of times that even though we are followers of Christ, even though we are followers of God, that's our King, that's our God, that's our ruler. There's a lot of times that we go against what He wants to do. And so sometimes we just got to learn to be patient, you know, and hey, He's going to do what He's going to do. You just have to believe. You know, again, that covenant thing, you know, it's counted to you as righteousness. Just believe. Let Him do the work. It's not for you to do the work. It's for Him to do the work. And that's not to say just, you know, give up, wipe your hands and go, oh, no, I'm just going to sit here till Yahweh decides to do what He's going to do. Now, you still have to do life, you know. I mean, part of the reason why God gave us life was for us to enjoy this life, you know. And I know it's hard sometimes. Sometimes things get very difficult, very hard. But, you know, at the same time, you know, if you feel that God's speaking to you through the Spirit and saying, hey, this is what I want you to do, you know, go with it. Let God do His work. Don't try to push it, though. Don't try to be arrogant in your own flesh and your own self and try to push God. Just, He might be telling you, wait, you know, He might be telling you that not yet. You just have to see what He has planned. Anyways, with that, Yahweh bless you all, and we'll see you on the next go round.